I just want to say, listen, thanks a million to the Royal Irish Academy for funding these 2 years of excavation and a possible third year next year in May. I just really want to say thanks a million, because I really couldn't have done it without you. So where am I bringing you today? I'm going to bring you into the south central area of the Burren in middle of County Clare. So we're going well away from Doolin. So just to give you an idea, that's where we're located. And these are the 2 years of 2 excavations that I've done. So one in 2022, and we did another excavation just this year in May. I'm just really going to give you the preliminary results of what we found on the digs. I do have 2 radiocarbon dates that we have got. I'm waiting on 2 more radiocarbon dates. Unfortunately, didn't arrive in time for this talk. And I'm just going to show you what we found. So I just want to give you an idea. I want to show you the kind of, just briefly, the amount of recorded monuments in this area, and there's a lot more unrecorded monuments in this location. I've been out surveying between 2 farmers' lands, so that's why I'm kind of here in this area as part of, it was the Burren programme, but now it's actually Burren Arran Acres. So as part of that farming scheme, I've been out dealing and engaging with these farmers about the archaeology on their land, and that's kind of what's brought me here to this location. So as you can see, everything, you can see there's a lot of red dots. My area is really in a very intense field system. It's a huge field system. It actually incorporates about 16 townlands. And we're just kind of on the kind of western edge of that massive field system. And you can see I've just highlighted all the cashels practically in this area, and they're in the white circles. So there's a lot of them. There's a couple of rectangular ones, and there's 2 raths which are further over, and most of them though are cashels. I also just wanted to highlight that there are a couple of burial sites. There's a couple of cairns. We do have a court tomb. You can just see the court tomb just down there to the bottom right, and there is a wedge tomb, so not too far. So this just gives you kind of a context of what's going on. There is like a prehistoric element, the Neolithic tomb, court tomb, and then obviously Bronze Age activity, and then a lot of medieval activity in this particular kind of zone of archaeology interest that I've been kind of involved in. So just to bring you to the first site. Now, I found this while out with the farmer, actually. He was bringing me around his farm, showing me some of the archaeology, the ones that were recorded, and of course, obviously, the ones that were not recorded. And we just were down in this kind of southern area of his farm, and we were walking around a corner, and what did we spot? This lovely guy in this kind of green field. It was a very sunny day. It was like, and I just was like, oh, what's that over there? And it was obviously a small unrecorded hut site. So I decided we'd go get it recorded. And sure, why not? Maybe we could do an excavation on one. Now, this farmer was really engaging, and he's really into his archaeology, and he was very accommodating. So that's really one of the reasons why I went to this particular farm. And then also, I didn't really think we'd quite walk in, actually, to get to this site. So sometimes I don't think about accessibility. I kind of think about, they'll let me out and they'll let me dig on their farm. So I applied then to the Royal Irish Academy, and sure, we were given the grant to go excavating. So it's kind of a small site. It's about 8 metres in diameter, and I suppose they recorded as hut sites. Now, I am kind of interested in these sites. It wasn't that, I'll do that one. I've actually found quite a few unrecorded hut sites in the Burren anyway, just from my activity with the farmers and going out. So I do have a few more of these that need to get recorded. But I just quite like them as a site. And, they're small, and, what's going on with them. Not many of them have been excavated. So anyway, we went for a trench. A 10 metre by 4 metre wide trench. So we really incorporated the whole inside of the structure, because I was kind of thinking, are they house sites? Are they hut sites? What are they? Are they enclosures? And at least maybe we might find as much activity in the centre of these. Would there be post holes? Would there be pits? Would there be fireplaces? Oh, who knows, until you take that layer of topsoil off and you find what you find. And that's just it. Especially anyone who excavates in the Burren, there isn't very much depths to archaeology, unfortunately. And that's what we found. Once the topsoil came off, we found very little. We found a little layer of archaeology within the centre. You can just see it there on my left side. It's kind of this dark, humic kind of soil. It was different to the topsoil. And that's really where we found a lot of the material that we got off our site. So I think I was very lucky to actually find this. I did not find any post holes. We did not find any pits. We did not find a fireplace. We found a little bit of charcoal, but we did find quite a few little artefacts, which I am going to show you. Now, we decided, which before we'd even gone into excavation, that all the soil was going to be sieved. So just to make sure that nothing was really left behind, and we took a lot of soil samples with us. Now, we did find, I knew when we gone out, that there was a wall, an enclosed stoning wall under what looked like an earthen kind of mound, a circular mound. And as you can see, one side was in really good condition. You can just see from the picture there, do I have another one of it? Yeah. So you can see the south-east side of the wall was quite well intact. It's just a dry stone kind of wall. The outer face had very large stones. The inner face had very small stones on the inside, but we could delineate a very nice kind of enclosing wall. Unfortunately, on the other side, the northwest side had completely collapsed, and it was very difficult to define what was the outer face and what was the inner face. But we kind of managed to define the outer face, but the inside, it was just very low to the ground. And as you can see, the height was only 25 centimetres in height, where the one on the southeast side was 60 centimetres in height. So you can see that one side was much better than the other. And then you can see, this is just the aerial photo. We were able to remove all the archaeology material on the inside, and we did investigate the collapsed side of the mound. I didn't want to go through the one that was well intact. I just felt that it was so nice. We'll just leave it as it is, and we'll see if we can get any archaeological material from underneath that maybe we could date. And I did, but I actually haven't dated it, because it's just, when you send something off to be radiocarbon dated, you really want to make sure it's really secure. So at the moment, I'm waiting for the animal bone to come back. So what did we find on this site? We found some chert pieces. We found some quartz pieces. We found a few shale flakes. And we found some lovely sandstone pebbles. So just to explain why all these things were important, we're in literally primarily limestone landscape. These materials, these sandstone pebbles and shale flakes, aren't local to the area at all. So they have been brought in, and they're obviously part of some sort of tools that the people were using. So we've kept all of this material. We did find a couple of whetstones. So those are stones for sharpening knives or sharpening stone tools. 2 of them are broken, but they're still in pretty good condition. And then the other things that we found, these tiny things that we find out sieving. And in fairness now, I had a lot of volunteers out on our dig, the Burren Conservation Volunteers, which Michael's talked about. This is who was out coming out digging with me. Some of them had experience digging before, and some of them are students from Galway as well. So we were really meticulous when it came to sieving and what we were going to find. So you can see we found these tiny little things. We found obviously a tiny piece of bronze corroded material, which the specialist had told me is probably used for repairing other tools. And then we found this lovely high tin bronze droplet, so tiny little droplet that we initially thought might be silver, but it is not. It's high tin bronze. And what does that mean? I was like, explain. So it means that obviously this is to do with kind of casting, a high-end casting of making metalworking. And this droplet, as obviously the piece has fallen off. And when it's polished, it actually looks like silver, but it's not silver. So that's really interesting from something so small. So I'm hoping we might get more information about that. That's as far as I've gone with the, I'm waiting for other people to come back to me about more information about things. So it's just very interesting when you find the little things. Then we did get some iron artefacts. We have 2 knives. You can see them they're the ones here on the right-hand side. And we have other implements. Again, they seem to be like everyday tools. One might be off of a ring pin, but we just couldn't get a full confirmation on it. It's broken there, the second object to the right. But anyway, again, just kind of everyday items, that people were using. And then we found this guy, a little tiny glass mount, or a toggle, I suppose is what we call it. So that's currently with the specialists at the moment. So I'm waiting for them to come back to me about that. I'm just giving them the time before, but it's kind of interesting. I don't know, is it broken? Was there a blue bit at the other side? And was it a toggle for some other piece? Or did this get mounted into a piece of jewellery? We're waiting to get confirmation on that. But you can see how tiny it was. So we were really lucky. I happened to have local kids come to my dig for the day. And of course, it's one of the kids that finds the toggle in his sieve. So that was very exciting now for that child. So I think he's going to be a future archaeologist. The mom says he's been out digging in the garden. So this is kind of the community element of our excavation, So they'll have the locals, and we had the farmers as well come and dig. And we had invited a couple of kids as well to come, children to come. So the other few things that we found, we found this lovely piece of a bone point, possibly antler, I think. But again, the specialist I'm waiting for the material to come back from the specialist. And then we found 2 perforated animal bones. Now we didn't notice that these pieces of animal bone were perforated at the time, because I was actually looking for material for dating. I was very conscious of getting secure dating material. I actually had kept those as really nice, because they were big bones and they were really low down in that layer of archaeology that we had. But after we cleaned them up afterwards, found out they were perforated. So again, won't be able to date those, but I have other material for dating. But just a lovely kind of aspect to the site, from such a small kind of little hut site, I suppose. We were getting lovely little artefacts kind of telling us, starting to bring a story together, So what were the other things that we found on site? So I know I said we didn't find a fireplace, but we did get some charcoal. Now, it's only a handful of charcoal. It's not very much. We did get lots of bits of animal bone, burnt and kind of unburnt. I don't want to say cremated, but that kind of whitish looking bits of bone. So, and a lot of that now is off with the specialists at the moment. And then we got heat shattered stones. So they were found kind of within the inside. They were just kind of randomly placed around the site. So there is an indication that there was a fireplace somewhere, not necessarily inside, but could have been outside, the fire. So there was some sort of heating going on the site. Now, I have a radiocarbon date from the layer on the inside, but I do need to get a few more dates. So at the moment, I'm looking at the layer from the inside. Can't tell you what the date of the construction around the outside is, but it's 600 to 650 AD. So that's, we're kind of looking around early 7th century dates. So we're looking at the early medieval period. So that was a really nice surprise, because really when we were digging, you couldn't really say for sure what date it was looking at, but to get this date now is fantastic, because it's starting to put a story together about our site and the context that it's in. So just because we did one dig, I kind of felt that we had a lot more questions after the excavation. We still couldn't confirm what these sites were used for, so I decided to go back. And of course, not like 400 metres in the neighbouring farmer's land, he actually had one recorded hut site, and there was actually a second one beside it. So I decided, I'll go back again. I asked that farmer, he was very obliging, and I said, sure, look, if I'm going to do one trench, I'll do two, and dig the two hut sites and see what we get, So that's what I went for again this year, and you can see them there. The bottom one, the lower one, was the recorded one, and it actually turns out this one up here on the right was unrecorded, so I recorded it with National Monuments and applied then for my licence. So what did I go for? 2 trenches. I thought, it'd be nice, dig, maybe similar to last year's 2022, so we'll get a good bit done. Anyway, you can see trench 1 and then trench 2, and that's the level of, and there's a nice aerial photograph. So it was quite big. Trench 1 was 20 metres long by 3 metres wide, and the other trench then just a little bit shorter, because time wasn't kind of allowing us to dig both of them to the full length that I would have liked. But anyway, so what did we find? We uncovered in Trench 1 quite a bit of archaeological activity. We found features on the inside, and we also found unexpected burials on the inside, completely unexpected. So just to kind of, I'll run through really quickly, but you can see there's the aerial of our trench up on top, and there's a nice view, So we did find, obviously, the outer enclosing wall, just, again, dry stone kind of mound, a couple of large stones around the outside, but the walls were much wider. There was 1.5 metres wide, or, the one side, the kind of south side, had collapsed a little bit. It wasn't as high, but again, interesting in its own right. And we did investigate and took out some of that to get a date, to see if we could date it. So I got a lovely bit of bone down at the very bottom of that mound. So I'm very excited. That's one of the dates I'm waiting to come back. So this just gives you an idea of the structure, the outer structure. Now, we did get material outside and inside the structure as well. So we've kind of a range of activity going on the site. So the layer around the inside, am I okay for time at the moment? Yeah, okay, good. I just want to make sure I get to the end, the photographs of the artifacts. What did we find on the inside? You see this lovely, I'll go and discuss, 10 minutes, great. I'll talk about the stone structure in a minute, but we did get an archaeological layer on the inside. You can see kind of a dark brown soil layer. That's where a lot of our artifacts actually came from. So just want to give you an idea of the kind of context that we were dealing with. So again, not very deep, probably up to max 20 centimetres at one point, 18 to 20 centimetres. And we were very slow, obviously, to take all of that out. And we found any material we found, any artifacts we found, or to record the levels, and we pinpointed the coordinates and everything. So we're very kind of meticulous with what was coming out, and everything again as well got saved off this site. So we did find in the kind of southeastern corner, we found a lovely pit. which was kind of towards the end of the excavation. Not a very, it went beyond the bank, so I can't tell you the full length of it, but we excavated. It was 1 metre long by 70 centimetres wide, and it had a depth of 40 centimetres. So this is very interesting because this is under the bank that had collapsed, obviously from the outer enclosure. And this is where most of the charcoal came from our site. So this is very interesting. And we secured material from the very base to date it. So I'd be very interested, really excited to find this, because to actually find a nice pit feature, we hadn't found any on the other enclosure. But to find one on the inside of this one was very, very exciting. So then what else did we find along the way? We had this kind of oval. Do you see the kind of further over picture? Just kind of after we moved the topsoil, we noticed that there was kind of a mound of stones, loose mound of stones. And as we were kind of slowly excavating around, we realised it was kind of forming this oval shaped, and what was going to be underneath it was anybody's guess at this point. But we had a couple of suggestions, like could it have been a burial anyway. So, but as you can see, that's what we did find towards it. Once we removed the stones off the top of it, we had an outer ring of stones. And then once we went into it, we found a crouched burial remains. So that was very exciting, also very unexpected, as I suppose I thought I was digging kind of habitation material. But so it was just very interesting. It was a crouched burial. It was kind of lying in an east-west direction, with the head to the east, and the face was facing south. And as you can see, its knees were bent up, and its hands were placed kind of in together, I suppose, folded into each other and up and under the chin. So that was really interesting. We didn't find any artefacts with it now, but we did take all the soil in and around the burial on request from the osteologist to take everything. So she was delighted when I'd already told her we were planning on taking all the soil away, so we'd sieve it. So it was very interesting, bit unexpected. But then what happens when you find one burial? You find another. So we did get another second burial on the site, and this time it was an infant burial, and this was actually outside the structure, and it was under the collapsed stone from the enclosing wall. And this one was very young. I suppose, excuse me, and this one, we were able to record that this one was aligned in a kind of north-northwest, south-south-east orientation with the head to the north-northwest. But unfortunately, the bones were very degraded. So really all that was left was kind of a couple of teeth bones, a couple of skull bones, and one or two very tiny arm bones. And we are probably looking at something very young, possibly under 3 months. But the osteologist was just saying, she'll confirm it when we get the material into the post-ex phase anyway. So it's a very young individual. So that was our second burial on the site. And as they always say in archaeology, when there's one, sometimes there's one, but when there's two, there's more. And that's what we did find. As we were digging on the inside, we noticed that we had a second kind of cairn, oval cairn of stones. I've just outlined it there in the red. So I had said that we just didn't have time because we were only there for 3 weeks, and the burials that we had found took up a good bit of time. And sometimes you just have to say to yourself, you don't want to rush it. And the archaeology that we found was so important that I felt that we would come back next year if we could, if we were going to get funding. So the second cairn of stones is unexcavated. I can't say for certain if there is a burial underneath it, but it's looking very similar. And of course, very towards the end, we did find another burial on the site. You can see it just there in the middle. You can see the head I've just marked the head and the feet. We didn't fully excavate this either. We just found it kind of as we were doing a final kind of clean up on the site. We'd only about 3 days to go. This popped up, and this burial now you can see there is a grave cut to it. And this one is different to the crouch burial. It's actually elongated. And this one, the head is to the west and the feet are to the east. And it looks like it's fully extended. I don't know, are they lying on their back or their side? But it does look like it's a full extended burial. So that will be very interesting for us to come back. So it's, two different burial types already on this site. Anyway, so I'll just keep going and just give you an idea of what we think. I just put it in there with the crouch burial, obviously the full extended burial, and then the possible second cairn that we have on the site. So those are the interesting features. And then our pit, you can see just the pink pit, if you see it in the drawing, it's just up there, kind of up to the top right of the crouched burial. So our second trench, Unfortunately, our second trench wasn't anything like what we found in Trench 1. So this was the second smaller enclosure in this area. So we did give it a good, we took off the topsoil, and it was more similar to the first site excavation in 2022. We did get artefactual material in it, and I do have material for dating, which was brilliant. But again, just not... it had a layer, a kind of an archaeological layer in the centre, just not very deep. And that's really kind of where we did find a lot of artefacts, but we didn't find any burials inside in this. And we did make sure before we finished that there wasn't anything down in that kind of gravel layer. There was no burials in this one. But again, we still have some lovely stuff from this site. So it's not, it's just interesting that we have two very similar site types that there's different activity going on inside in them. So that's just to give you an aerial. You can see we didn't get fully excavate to see the inner face and the outer face, but we did do kind of a little extension into it, and we were able to say, so again, it's quite wide, that kind of enclosing wall in it. So what else did we find? I will move on to the artefacts. Are we okay for time? Perfect, yeah. So we did get lots of animal bone, burnt, unburnt. I don't know if some of it actually cremated. We look like we'd have lots of kind of cremated bones, so we got to get those off to the specialist to tell me what they are. We found lots of heat shattered stones again, and we didn't find a huge amount of charcoal. All the charcoal is mainly from that pit that we found. So just again, that layer that we had on the inside, it had little bits of charcoal, a little bit of hazelnut as well that we found. And then we have a range of artefacts from our site. And I'm just going to discuss it. I'm not going to separate them from the trenches, but just most of them are coming from that larger trench that we excavated. So what did we get? We got lots of cherts and lithics, flint lithics. We have them from inside, but mainly from outside the structure. The flint has come from actually outside of that larger enclosure, so that was really interesting. We had a concentration of them there, but we did get cherts and stuff from both the sites, and flints from both of them, and we did get stuff from inside. The other thing we got is this lovely church arrowhead that was found inside, and then we have a possible burnt hammerstone. Now, the other things we got wet stones and hone stones again. We got shale pebbles on the site, and again, these are being brought to the site. We have these unusual shale nodules that are again being brought to the site, what they're being used for, and we have these shale pieces. So the other kind of things we have is water rolled stones. These are kind of sandstone pebbles. Some of them are broken. We've quartz pebbles, and then we've lovely kind of quartz, small tiny pieces of quartz pieces. I'm not 100% certain are they worked or not, but once the material needs to head into post-ex stage. We did get a spindle whorl, and this lovely stone kind of shale spindle whorl, really well polished, and a lovely kind of carved hole into it. We did get a couple of beads. We got a lovely green bead. That's kind of from inside. That's from that layer around the burial. I do want to just let you know, anyone wondering about that layer, the burial actually cuts that layer. So that layer was there beforehand, and all those stones are actually left on top. They were on top of that kind of layer that we had. We got a gorgeous quartz bead as well. Some of this as well, some of these artefacts are found as well. Michelle Comer has been getting a couple of them, so there's a little bit of a comparison and parallel between my finds and what's going on in Caherconnell. We did get these lovely toggles. We have two bone toggles and one blue kind of glass toggle. And then we have these random kind of blue glass fragments. I don't know, is it a broken bead? And then we got a piece of an antler tine as well. And then we got a bunch of iron artefacts. One of the lovely ones was a socketed arrowhead. And then we have a couple of nails, and then a couple of I think there's one or two knives in that mix there. So I just wanted to say, we've got a fantastic amount of material that's still I'm still getting to handle with it, and getting to handle with the dig of what I thought I was getting to what you just never know what's under your feet, when you go digging as archaeologists. There's a burial site, so I'm waiting to find out. I have 2 more dates to come. I'll get them now probably in the next week or two, so it'll be very exciting. And I just want to say huge thanks to the Burren Conservation Volunteers. We had a huge crew the past 2 years coming out and digging some of the students, and just to show you kind of general activity that they got to learn all the aspects of excavations. And then we just had the farmers, and we had a couple of visits. So anyway, I'm just going to leave it there with the radiocarbon date that we got for the burial. So that was 700 to 880 AD. So we're looking at 8th, 9th century for that burial. But it's not dating my site yet. it's just one of the activities I think that's happened on my site. So we possibly are looking at something more multi-period. But again, I'm saying that quite tentatively until I get my other radiocarbon dates. But anyway, thanks very much.